Around 2800 BC, there lived a hunter named Nimrod in Babylon, which was located between the Tigris and the Euphrates rivers. Whenever wild animals threatened the people, he protected them with his power. As people respected and supported him, Nimrod became arrogant and incited people to build the Tower of Babel.
Come, let us build a tower that reaches to the heavens. Let us make a name for ourselves and not be scattered over the face of the whole earth.
Such deeds of Nimrod that were against God has continued even after Nimrod had died. Semiramis, Nimrod's wife, insisted that Nimrod became the sun god. She cut Nimrod's dead body into pieces and sent them to each tribe of Babylon. People regarded the place where a part of Nimrod was buried as sacred. She also claimed that Nimrod was reincarnated as her son.
The sun god Nimrod was reincarnated as my son Tammuz. He who believes and follows Tammuz follows Nimrod.
As Semiramis ruled over Babylon in place of her young son Tammuz, she maneuvered people into worshiping her. Monuments of Semiramis carrying her child Tammuz in her arms were set up all over Babylon, along with various images symbolizing the sun god. The sun worship and the mother-child worship, which was a scheme devised by Semiramis, put down roots as a religion of Babylon. Idolatry stemmed from Babylon, spread to many countries after the Tower of Babel collapsed. It is because when the Babylonians were scattered over the whole world, they brought the sun worship and the mother-child worship. The sun worship and the mother-child worship were assimilated into the cultures and religions of many countries, and they came to have various forms and names. Nimrod, the sun god, was known as Mithra in Persia, Sol in Rome, Ra or Horus in Egypt, and Apollo in Greece. Semiramis and Tammuz, who were the start of the mother-child worship, was called Isis and Horus, Venus and Dionysus, Diana and Attis, and Astaroth and Tammuz, respectively. Besides these, the image of goddess, who is holding a baby in her arms, was venerated in many countries of the world. If so, was the mother-child worship the creature of an age, which was especially welcomed only in Babylon? Surprisingly, the mother-child worship of Babylon has been passed down through the thousands of years and still exists today. In Vatican of Rome, we can find the mother-child worship in its original state.
The newest terrorist organization, known as ISIS, is overtaking al-Qaeda's reign as public enemy #1. Sunni Islamic militants are unleashing brutality and bloodshed in Iraq.
This is ISIS, the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, driving toward Baghdad. The jihadist group so extreme, even al-Qaeda wants nothing to do with them.
We're in a pretty scary place if al-Qaeda is disavowing people for their violence.
Iraq on the verge of total collapse as terrorists capture city after city.
They're a Sunni Muslim jihadist group formed a year ago and pledging to create an Islamic State across Iraq, Syria and neighboring countries. They have strongholds in significant parts of northern Syria too. including Azaz, Raqqa and Abu Kamal. They took Fallujah 5 months ago, now they have Mosul and appear to have taken the city of T.H.E as well. But their ambitions go far wider, to create a Muslim caliphate, a single Islamic state, to include not just Jordan and Palestinian territories, but Israel too, and much of North Africa, if jihad makes progress there as well. All this is now ringing alarm bells among world leaders.
Not to be disputed, the legitimacy of ISIS's gruesome behavior. Violence so horrific.
From beheadings to forced amputations, it's one of the most extreme groups in the region. Too extreme even for Al-Qaeda, which formally rejected them earlier this year.
The 12th Imam, they believe, will eventually come back in the last days. It's just growing problems. It's chaos. It's war. But once that ends, the infidels will have been defeated, and the mullahs will rule over a peaceful Islamic world. Ahmadinejad and the leader of the Muslim Brotherhood believe that they can hasten the return of the 12th Imam or Mahdi. For the 12th Imam to return and bring an Islamic paradise, you have to have chaos. Lots and lots of bloodshed.
ISIS have crucified a man in Syria.
The UN has confirmed that militant Islamist group ISIS has ordered all women and girls in Mosul to undergo female genital mutilation. Females between the ages of 11 and 46.
Pure, unadulterated, unequivocated evil. A video that was shot by Muslims, all members of ISIS in Syria, and they are filming the heads of their victims on poles. The heads are on poles. This is something that came from the ancient world. I mean, it's something the pagans would do back in the day.
We watch horrific images of Christians being beheaded, slaughtered, their throats slit, absolutely mowed down, shot in the back of the head. Everything is going on, and still there's this suspension of belief that that would ever come here. This is the prophetic word of God for the last days out of Matthew chapter 10.
Their goal is, like I said, a religious cleansing.
And they're talking about doing it not just in the Middle East. Am I correct about that?
Well, I think it would be naive to assume that they would stop with just Iraq and Syria and some of these other countries. I'm sure there's a bigger plan there.
It is, in fact, a genocide that's going on. Thousands of Christians are being killed or forced to flee from their homes.
The now notorious Al-Qaeda breakaway group known as the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, or ISIS, have declared the creation of an Islamist state.
And let's be clear here, ISIS does not just threaten the region, it also threatens the U.S. We know that ISIS is planning and aspires to carry out attacks on the U.S. homeland.
The next 9/11 is in the making.
But anyway, we're going to get into the significance of all what's going on here. And this is where they're occupying now. Now, if you notice, this is Iraqi area, all the areas that they're occupying there, Jordan and such. And here's actually the map here. Syria, Iraq, and this was also used to be Babylon back in the Bible days. And ISIS is seizing control of the whole area. And it's not a coincidence it's called ISIS. Yeah, people say, oh, it's just an acronym for Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. No, it goes beyond that, folks. And as you can see, this is the old Babylonian map of Babylon. Now look at the Syria, Iraq, same area where Babylon, the Babylonian Empire ruled, happens to be, not coincidental, the same area that ISIS is actually taking over. It's not a coincidence why they're called ISIS either. And again, if you look at the maps here, here's Iraq, today's map of Iraq and Syria and such, and this is where ISIS is occupying. And now let's look at the Babylonian Empire of 600 BC. It's not a coincidence, folks. And ISIS, also known as, she's the queen goddess. Her name is also Semiramis. So ISIS is an Egyptian, and Semiramis, she was a queen goddess and rule of Babylon. And there was the Tower of Babylon there that her husband built, which was Nimrod. And Nimrod here, you see Nimrod, which is also, they call him Osiris in Egyptianology. So you got Nimrod, Isis, Nimrod, Semiramis, and Tammuz, I'm sorry. And the Egyptians' names are Osiris, Isis, and Horus, the sun god. Now, this is all Egyptianology. Also, they were the rulers of Babylon. And after Nimrod died here, this is when Tammuz was supposedly reborn out of his phallic symbol. Long story with that, but I mean, just study Egyptianology to know what we're talking about here. But anyway, long story short, these are the rulers of Babylon. And the reason why he's always depicted green for, especially in Masonry and high levels of the occult, Nimrod or Osiris, whoever you want to call him, he's always depicted as green. And these folks, these are the kings of all the Eastern religions out there. Every Eastern religion in the world, they have different names for the gods and goddesses. But they're all actually this person, because when Babylon fell, let me just go back to the map here. When Babylon fell, all the nations split up. The angels with the tongues and all that split all the nations up, and they took splinters of the old Babylonian religion to their the cultures there when the tower fell. And all those Eastern gods and goddesses are actually these three here: the sun god Horus, the star Sirius, the Pleiades and Orion. That's where the Masons and Illuminati build their structures in depiction of. And Isis here, she's the queen goddess. Now, she actually ruled Babylon. To the people, she was a good woman, but she was actually more horrific than Nimrod himself.
A Fox News alert, growing concern that the terror tirade in Iraq will soon be coming here to the United States.
The seeds of 9/11s are being planted all over Iraq and Syria. You don't have to believe me. This is what they're telling you they're going to do.
I am concerned, and I think all Americans should be concerned.
I guarantee you this is a problem that we will have to face. And we're either going to face it in New York City or we're going to face it here.
Well, that is pretty scary. With more on the threat, Peter Johnson Jr. joins us live.
Yeah, good morning, Steve. And I think all we have to do is look at the words of Colonel Kenneth King, who's the former commander at Camp Bucca prison in Iraq. Let's see his experience. And that's the fear coming to a city, including New York, as a result of what they're doing. It's important to understand who al-Baghdadi is. He's got a Ph.D. in Islamic studies from Baghdad University. He's considered one of the most brutal leaders in the world now. His nickname is the Invisible Sheik. He was detained at Camp Bucca, as you know, and then pushed out of al-Qaeda in 2013. And now we know that there's a $10 million bounty for his death or capture. Eerily similar and perceived by many of the al-Qaeda and former al-Qaeda forces, including the people at ISIS, as the logical successor to Osama bin Laden. And a lot of foreign policy experts are saying that the similarities are too eerie and too disturbing in terms of the way that Afghanistan was going in the 1990s to the way that Iraq is now proceeding in 2014. We only have to look at the radio address that al-Baghdadi gave last January. This is disturbing. He said, "Our last message is to the Americans. Soon we will be in direct confrontation, and the sons of Islam have prepared for such a day. So watch, for we are with you watching."
It's all scary about this. So that's the guy who's running ISIS right now. This is the same guy we had in prison, and now and let him loose.
And released and allegedly made a threat at the time that he left Camp Bucca. Then we need to be on the defensive and the offensive to ensure safety in our cities. It's a continuing battle in this war on terror.
We are also learning more about the leader of this terror group, a man described as the new bin Laden, the heir to bin Laden. It turns out he had been in U.S. custody until 2009 over in Iraq, when he was then handed over to the Iraqi government as part of our troop drawdown. And then he was released. Now he has led this effort to create an Islamic caliphate, a nation state ruled by harsh, radical Islamic law, and dedicated to killing, quote, non-believers and spreading its power as far as it can. Ken King, is the former commander of the prison where that man was held until his release in 2009. Ken, thank you so much for being here. The most disgusting, vile terror group we've seen in recent history.
Well, Jeff, the group's mysterious leader is a man known as Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. He is so elusive that we only have a couple of grainy photographs of him. But al-Baghdadi now commands several thousand men in Iraq and Syria, where he's trying to set up a state based on Islamic law. Al-Baghdadi is so feared that some people have dubbed him the new Osama bin Laden, and the US government has placed a $10 million bounty on his head.
And here we go again. Every few years, the US government props up a new boogeyman for the masses to fear. And so the latest corporate mainstream media, terrorist propaganda, deception is in full swing. And this time it is in the form of a group called ISIS, which of course has deep occult meaning. What we are seeing here is another psychological operation being thrust on the masses to instill fear and tug at the heartstrings of every individual still stuck in the corporate, elite, government-owned mainstream media paradigm. As we have seen in the past, the shadow government, elite, and mainstream media is able to propagate blatant lies and propaganda in order to create a fictional villain and enemy of America in order to achieve their New World Order agenda. Time and time again, over the past decade, the so-called terrorist group known as Al-Qaeda has been proven to be a creation of the CIA and continues to this day to be operated by the same forces. They have proven to be nothing but fictional boogeymen, along with Osama bin Laden, aka CIA asset Tim Osman. Among researchers and activists over the years, it is common knowledge that the bin Laden death was a hoax. The mere fact that the US government has never provided any evidence whatsoever proving his death should speak volumes as to the legitimacy of the Great War on Terror and the idea of terrorists in general, and also 9/11. Bin Laden and Al-Qaeda is a fictional villain in the game of war by deception, and so is this new group called ISIS and its leader, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. This so-called extremist group will likely be the scapegoat in the future false flag operation that will lead to another war. As we can see, the next 9/11 false flag fear-mongering is in full swing, and the usual culprits pushing this fear campaign is present as well. Republican South Carolina Senator, New World Order puppet, and agent of evil, Lindsey Graham, is one of the key figureheads of this operation and agenda. Graham made his first fear circus go around in 2013 when he sounded the alarms of America being nuked. After Obama's State of the Union address, he stated, quote, "The world is literally about to blow up," end quote. He was then used to push the fear propaganda for the Syria operation that was no doubt meant to start World War III. He was a key mouthpiece that pushed for Syria intervention, which was proven by thousands of activists throughout alternative media and social media networks to be a complete lie, which is why intervention was so widely protested, thus why the Syria operation failed. Graham publicly stated, quote, "The United States could suffer a nuclear attack if it did not contain Syria's chemical weapons program," end quote. And, quote, "I believe that if we get Syria wrong within 6 months, and you can quote me on this, there will be a war between Iran and Israel over their nuclear program," end quote. And last but not least, Graham told a crowd in South Carolina, quote, "My fear is that it won't come to America on top of a missile, it'll come in the belly of a ship in the Charleston or New York harbor," end quote. And now he is at it again for their ISIS-Iraq operation. They use the same old puppet mouthpieces because they know the masses will not be paying attention or care.
The next 9/11 is coming from here.
That's a very serious.
That's what they say, and I agree with them.
You think that we could have another?
Oh, I think it's inevitable.
He told me and the soldiers that were around me, "I'll see you in New York."
That is just chilling.
This man, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, has his eye on New York and his intentions are evil. I'll see you guys in New York.
Yes, the fear-mongering, mind control, corporate mainstream media, this is how they do it. CNN, of course, terrifying execution images in Iraq, terrifying terror, terrorists. See, these are the same old words. They use certain trigger words to evoke certain emotions from you regarding, you know, anything relating to terrorism, you know, evoking the 9/11 trauma. And that's what 9/11 was, a trauma-based mind control event. Now they can control the minds of the masses since that event, from that event, moving forward until they reach their goal. They can literally control your mind and play you like a fiddle with every event and every story that they put out using certain words. And this is how mass mind control works, through words that trigger fear. And this is how it's done. As you see here, since ISIS came about, this is what they are doing. Yes, viewer discretion is advised. So you see, these are the tactics of the media and how the government and elite use the media to usher in their New World Order agenda through these false flags, through these psychological operations. And remember, under the 2012 NDAA, and I covered this already, but propaganda, aka lying, aka bullshitting the public, is legal. It is in fact legal under the 2012 NDAA to lie to the masses, to basically execute psychological operations on the masses. And it is legal. There's not a damn thing we can do about it. We can't prosecute the media. We can't do a damn thing because it is legal under 2012 NDAA. And again, remember the occult significance of the word Isis. It's an Egyptian goddess and deity that is a favorite of the occult mysteries and secret societies that run this planet. So it's no coincidence here, this terrorist so-called extremist group called ISIS. And what do we have here? Is it also merely a coincidence, merely coincidental, that there's a contractor, US government, called ISIS? Yes. Oh, coincidence, I'm sure. ISIS provides worldwide security, intelligence, technology, and training to government and private enterprises. Our Washington, D.C. office is located in Ronald Reagan Building. We are dedicated to supporting our national defense and security department, as well as government contractors and private business, with mission-critical services performed by highly skilled experts in their fields. Interesting. U.S. Armed Forces, U.S. government, and prime contractors on the ground in such strategic environments as the Middle East. See our locations map at the bottom. Multinational forces, Iraq, theater-wide security services. Interesting choice word. Theater-wide. Department of Defense, DOD. Anything else in Iraq? Sure. Iraqi voting legislature. Personal protective services, Iraq Coalition for Peace. Client, contract, supported organization.
You ever have that feeling where you're not sure if you're awake or still dreaming? I know exactly what you mean.